Now, upon first glance, Majin Buu seems like kind of a weird character to use on block. He has sort of these weird stubby jabs, but also big heavies, and he's hard to figure out exactly what you're supposed to do with him. So this video is a block string and mix-up guide on block for Fat Buu. First off, for your staggers, you're mainly gonna just want to use jabs and like the second hit of the auto combo. This is the main stuff you're going to want to use to space out because they're the only moves he has that spaces and they have the best frame data. You got to be careful though because stand jab will whiff on short characters crouching sometimes. They did remedy this from Season 1. As you can see, if you're close, they will still get hit. But this can become an issue in a lot of situations, especially ones such as these where a short character knows the matchup and they can mash 2L after a 6M. You see, you have no way of challenging. So because his jabs space people out very well, he can get a pretty consistent plus on block 6M. So for example, something like that. This is especially useful in the corner where it's a little bit trickier, but in the corner your pressure with this will be a lot better because in this case your 2L can actually reach them, and so you can pretty reliably beat out plenty of buttons that try and catch you from this distance. Now, obviously, when you space out a 6M, it's quite slow, right? If you look at the frame data, 31 frames is a lot slower than it normally is. So a lot of people will think, well, can they just reflect it on reaction? And if you just saw what I did accidentally, if you delay the 6M just a little bit more after these jabs, it will whiff. And so what this will do is people who try and reflect, the reflect will whiff. I'm trying to space it. I think that's a poor representation, but basically, as you can tell from what I was doing, if you just delay the 6M a little bit more after these delayed jabs, the 6M will completely whiff entirely, and it's quite hard to see, so you can end up baiting people's reflect, get a 2M, get a whole bunch of damage on them, so that's important to know. Another thing about the short character matchup and your whole 5L losing to 2Ls thing is that there are a couple of ways to beat it even though they're a commitment. So the first way is you can super dash over their button. This is not guaranteed to punish them because some characters have less disadvantage on whiff than other characters, but a lot of the time doing super dash will at least end up giving you a mix-up because super dash plus assist exists. And if it does end up getting you a punish, even mid-screen, you can still end up doing something like this. And this will give you a complete restand combo. The other thing you can do is use the heavy dive bomb, butt stomp, whatever you want to call it. And the reason this works is because the hitbox actually hits on frame 7, which is most 2Ls in this game. So because it's a special move instead of a normal, it has higher priority, and so even though they hit at the same time, the dive bomb takes priority and beats it out. The reason this is a little bit more of a commitment than a super dash, in my opinion, is one, if they just block and they see you go for it, it's 2Hable and you can get punished really hard for it. And number two, it just costs meter. And generally, you don't really want to be spending bar on your own pressure, especially when you can spend bar on your own pressure and get this mix-up, which we'll talk about later. Something a lot of people don't know about this 5M is that it's actually a true overhead. So him trying to crouch block it doesn't work. If you think it scales like a medium, you'd be wrong. It scales like a 6M does, so about that badly. The damage you get off of this is pretty lackluster, but the important thing is that you can convert it into a full combo without any need of assist. So even though it's quite slow, it'll still catch a lot of people off guard, especially in situations like this. So keep that in mind. There's also the particularly cursed situation that I don't really recommend anyone doing, but is really funny, where you do 5M, 6M. And if they block this, there's no way they're ready for this. It's really, really tricky, but it's not recommended. A lot of people look for anti-reflect block strings, and so I'm just going to show one off right now. So, this Blockstring will anti-reflect 5L, 5H. However, it will lose to reflect tag because the 5H isn't fast enough. So to remedy this, what you can probably try to work in is this weird Blockstring, which is 2 5S's after the 5L. And the reason this would work is because when they super dash after, the Ki Blast will clank and let you cancel into 2H if you react to the tag. It won't automatically beat it like some characters, but it's a lot better than nothing. And if they don't try to tag, it'll still catch the next thing they try to do, so don't worry about that. The issue with this Blockstring is there's no guarantee you'll get a grounded Ki Blast. Let's say they jumped or something. This might hit them in the air and you will do no combos, no nothing off of that. And even still, if you do get a grounded conversion, let's say something like this, because it's a Ki Blast and it scales kind of hard, you're still not really going to be doing that much damage, but it's still better than what a lot of characters have with that lack any anti-reflect whatsoever, so just keep that string in mind, even though it's quite unorthodox. It's also worth noting that at point blank, Majin Buu's auto combo will do something like that, and that's important because it lets you do that. When people reflect that auto combo that far away, it's extremely hard to punish, even with things like Bardock Lariat and stuff like that. So you can even potentially just reaction 5S if you see them reflect and beat out most of their options. So that's another way you can sort of stay in after pressure with anti-reflect. Unfortunately, it's not the best. The last thing I want to mention about Majin Buu's stagger game is that he does have a setup for a quote-unquote unreactable cross-up, which looks something like this. This is really fast. The conversion can be a little tight, but that one works on every character in the game. But you don't even really need to use the EX cartwheel cross-up because I find that his regular cross-up is already really difficult to react to. It's quite fast, it's only a frame slower than 21's. And if that wasn't enough, he also has a same side option that scales like a medium. And of course, if you're not confident that this will hit somebody, you can use same side super dash, which will also work fine. The last little fun thing you can do when pressuring people is you can do triple overheads. I mentioned this in the Oki guide as well, but you can use his air butt stomps to triple overhead people and get a couple of free hits. Another thing is, on not tall characters or people who already started crouching after you overheaded them, you can also get a cross-up 2-6M using the air butt stomp, and this is really dirty because it looks just like the overhead as well. So even though these are like somewhat risky, they're really not that risky at all. You can go for these for some free hits. Really the only problem is the reward isn't very high because you see if they get hits, basically the only thing you can do is super or vanish. If you are in dire need of plus frames and really don't want to end your pressure, his cloud will jail into vanish, and even though there's a gap, so let's say they were just guessing reflect on it, they will reflect you away, and then if they're Yamcha or something, they'll be able to punish you with Wolfang Fist or something. But basically you can do this at some point, and it's extremely difficult, if not impossible, to react to. So it can basically just guarantee you some plus frames for a bar. If you want to mix someone up, the primary mix-up you're going to be using as Majin Buu, the most legit thing he has, is this EX cartwheel 50-50. What this is a high-low mix-up where the low is completely true, the high is true. And also, this is really crazy, it's safe to guard cancel. So basically on any block string for half a bar and 40 frames of block stun, you can get a high-low mix-up that you can't guard cancel out of, which is really, really nice. In the corner, you can do this after whatever normal you want, but mid-screen, most of the time, you will have to do it after a 2M because 2M pulls them in closer. And why you need to pull them closer is because often these assists have a lot of pushback, and if they have too much pushback, the low will not connect. Another thing that's useful about Majin Buu is that he does have a 10 frame 2M that can hit at certain distances mid-screen. So if you delay your assist enough or your assist doesn't have that much pushback, you can turn Majin Buu's Super Dash assist mix-up into a true 3-way mid-screen, which not very many characters have access to. This also means he's capable of stealing the corner in Super Dash plus assist in the corner, which is really disgusting. The last little gimmick you can do when pressuring people is spacing out your block string and then throwing out a fat. This is really gimmicky because fat is really slow, and so really most good players will either mash out of it in some way. If you do it too close, they'll vanish, they'll use a DP, something that will hurt you. But it's useful against players who you've conditioned not to mash very much and who really respect your offense. So if you do something like this, for example, this is really useful because now if they respect it, what they're going to try and do is reflect it, because reflect is the least risky option. If they reflect it, it's a projectile, which means Majin Buu doesn't get pushed away. So even if they reflect it, you either get free plus frames, or if you have an assist, you can use the fat to jail into Super Dash for a mix-up, which is really, really nice. Like I said, again, it's super risky. I don't recommend going for it in a real match if you're trying to win. This is just something you can throw out to troll people. If you're in sparking, you can get a little bit more creative with your mix-ups. So, for example, you can do something like this, which is really difficult, if not impossible, to get out of. You have to also remember that Majin Buu's 2M still steals the corner even if you're in spark, so that can result in some nasty sparking mix-up shenanigans. Another thing you can do in Spark is Tiger Knee this EX cartwheel in the block string, and the reason this is good is because instead of being -7, it is +1 or 2, or I think I've sometimes seen 5, depending on how much you, on how close you do it to the ground and whatever fucking shit, I don't know, but basically this is plus, and what this allows for is that basically just means that the more frame advantage you can get with this cartwheel, the less block stun you can do the mix-up for. That would be a true block string. Now, if you're looking to end your pressure, the primary thing you would do is this. This will space you really far, even though the frame data says -7, so it's very unlikely that things can punish you from here. Even more rare that things can even hit you from here. As you can clearly see, this is very far out. But basically, in other words, most people will not even be able to get pressure on you from this distance. You can space yourself even further by doing a 2H before it, and that just spaced me clean away from both the hits of UI's 5M, and I can just punish this. I suggest getting good at sort of delaying your buttons in a particular way when you're doing this, because if you just mash it like I did right there, the guard cancel will hit you. But if you do this, what will happen is the guard cancel will freeze the screen, and it will allow you to punish on reaction if you just input the button again. So basically, if you're just looking to end your pressure in any way, this is a great way to do so. The fun part about it spacing itself so well is then that creates a mix-up of you doing moves like these, or trying to air dash back in for pressure, or even just super dashing back in with an assist, which is a mix-up. So basically, this is still a really good situation for you to be in, even though you're ending your pressure. And I think that's basically it for pressure on this character. There's really it's kind of weird, but it's pretty good in my opinion. So if you have any questions about it, leave in the comments, etc. You know how it is. Bye bye.